Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, tough lovers. Oh yeah, wearing my official merch. So welcome to the first tentatively monthly State of the Game stream. So this is what to expect in this talk. Past, what did we accomplish last month? Give some context of what the game is doing right now. And also, it's easy in the thick of it, when I'm focused on, ranked mode or the next feature, it's easy to lose track of some of the cool things we've done, and I want to have a chance to sort of celebrate that. Present is talking about the game as it currently is, and more game design, character design, balance, so you have a chance to hear my feelings on it, what my perception of the community's feelings are on it. And then future, it should be, what are you expecting to see in the past part of next month's slide. Very high-level roadmap-y check-in, because these plans are very nebulous, and they keep changing in terms of what are Amy and I's goals with the game. And then as time allows, as long as there are questions and I have the energy for it, I would love to chat. What did we do this month? Quite a bit, actually. Started off with April Fools. I really enjoyed the April Fools experiment. It was very sort of last minute. Me and Amy had joked for a long time about for April Fools we should just put a Paul Chop in there or something. But then I started thinking about it and I thought it could be a cool chance to explore some design ideas and do some really wackier stuff, bring back some goofy stuff that didn't survive the alpha testing. Yes, this is our shareholders meeting, Amy. And I think it was a resounding success. People really enjoyed it. April Fools served as a great sort of proof of concept for archiving the game. I am glad to see how well it's preserved and how people still... I got messages in the Discord today about people playing it and discovering new combos and bugs. That gives a lot of hope for the super 5 to 10 year feature. What if, something happens? What if Tough Love Arena needs to be rehosted by the community? This to me is a proof of concept of that. The meter patch, a large part of this last month, and especially this month, and we'll get to this in a second, is me trying to slow down, taking the time away from development to sort of reassess where we were going and some of the decisions we've been making over the last couple of months. And totally cutting off meter off of Rapid was one of those. As maybe we went too far. We had a very reactive change according to the game balance at the time, and the meta at the time. And honestly, we did see some stuff we didn't like 3-bar combos. It's a great opportunity for sort of adjusting things. The start of open sourcing. I know people are more excited about the netcode or potentially the engine, but felt good to get that sort of landing space there. We reserved the name of github.com/toughlovearena, and already if you go there you can find the open source code for the events page and the status page, which I just updated today, both of them. That is where the Meteor stuff will go in the future, like the netcode, like the engine. And ranked, we finally got it out. It was a really long process, and it still needs a lot of fixing and polishing, and I appreciate beta players having the sort of patience and giving us the chance to iterate on these things, not wait till it's 100% polished, but push it out, because then we find issues and we fix things and we make the better product that much faster. Let's talk about the present. What am I going to be doing next? Lots to do on ranked. I need to add a lot more polish. We're still finding pretty critical huge bugs like the input delay one. Big props to Discord, and I think it was Abic. Thank you, Abic. And I also want to add more monitoring, like the change to the status page today, to get more insight into what is the traffic we're seeing on ranked. Do the sort of borders for mild, medium, hot, do those make sense, or is it too easy to get into hot, or is it too easy to get into medium? Those sorts of things we're still experimenting with, hence the promise of the reset in about 2 weeks. Premium accounts is the next big task I plan to work on. If anything, because now ranked is out and we have that leaderboard, I think it would be so much more powerful to see your actual name of, Meep at the bottom of the leaderboard instead of weak egg or whatever it was. So we're very excited about that. It will require building out a decent amount of front end and a lot of very careful testing, because I do not want to iterate and make mistakes when I'm taking people's credit cards. And the plan is to charge a one-time fee. The whole point of the sort of paywall to premium, I believe, is a decent minimum to discourage harassment, to discourage abuse. So people don't make random accounts and put slurs in their name or put self-promotion URLs. The idea is anytime you try to do that, we take your account away. Again, all of the game is still super free, but if you want to have a custom name, this is sort of how we're going to do moderation. We have a lot of infrastructure tech debt. For people not familiar with the term tech debt, every time you're writing software, you are always making a decision between do I do it fast or do I do it right? A large part of what I've learned in my 10-ish years of development experience is how do you balance that? Because if you go too fast, you just ship a broken product and people can't play it or use it and they don't enjoy it. But if you go too slow, if you get it too right, you'll spend a year polishing a beautiful egg only to release it and realize it's not what people want. And I try with Tough Love Arena, especially in the beta, to find the middle ground of, good enough, but not finishing quite everything so that we can get feedback and I can prioritize what's most important or sometimes just abandon stuff outright. And unfortunately, I think in the first couple months of this year after launch, with all the excitement of everyone playing the game and the really high traffic we had, I was leaning a little too far on the fast. I was going too hard in just like shipping features over and over and over again. There was a lot of bumps or a lot of versions I remember in the first couple of weeks where I'd push a change that like really broke something big and I'd have to immediately fix it in another push in like 10 minutes. That's not how it should be. The big remaining tech debt now is how all of Tough Love Arena is hosted. We're seeing this with the leaderboard right now where it was having connection issues, and we're seeing it in our bills. And also there was a big outage like 2 weeks ago in the middle of the Tough Love Gauntlet 14 tournament that just broke my heart. I still think, polishing ranked, maybe working on premium is a little bit higher priority than that, but the buck has to stop somewhere, and I plan to spend a non-trivial amount of time this month starting to migrate things. I might have to shut the site down for like an hour. I'll try to do it in the middle of the night when no one's playing, but moving our code into a more sane long-term home. And active users. I know there's been some rumblings on the Discord about maybe it's harder to find a match and stuff, but I am very proud to say that we're not dead yet, and we're still hitting pretty good numbers. I was very pleased to see active players over 100 this afternoon, and I have hope that some of the features that we're shipping out, like ranked, will bring new players in, give people more reasons to stick around and keep playing, and we have a lot of approaches for that. I'm aware of the trend. It can be a little disheartening to watch, but honestly what keeps us going is the core community and the people in the stream chat right now and the people in the Discord. But I want to do whatever I can to grow the game, to stuff like the events page, stuff like me being a little bit more active on Twitter, stuff like this, because everyone has a better time the more people are in it. The whole point of a multiplayer game is about your community. It's the whole reason I put this in a browser and made it free in the first place, to attract as many eyeballs as possible so that you can actually find a game. So, gameplay design. I just think all this stuff is worth mentioning explicitly because there isn't another place to do this. This is part of why I'm really excited about State of the Game. Because often we talk about the problems, or we talk about the things that have recently been addressed and hopefully are better now, but things that I think are okay is the damage. The meter gain, how often people are getting bursts, how often people are getting rapids, the amount of matches I play, and how often timeout comes into consideration, which is sometimes, but not too often. I think that's really fun. I've played plenty of games myself in the last week where I was being too passive and the opponent just beat me on the clock. I think the overall system is in a pretty good place in terms of these high-level ratios. On a character level, and we're about to get into big details, I think Onion Noodle are a little too strong, both through a combination of very high damage, lots of options for conversion, on top of an already pretty complete tool set. Onion always had the damage. The problem is just, I think, the tools were bad at launch, and also people have gotten better at using the tools, both between Hopkick and doing certain confirms and just taking better advantage of a high walk speed character. Rice and Beef are a bit too weak. Beef pre-parry, when I wrote most of these slides, I think it's still a little too soon to say. So take all of this with a grain of salt. But I think they're weak in that they are viable, but I think they really suffer compared to their variation. And Pork and Garlic are good in my mind. I think they're in a good place. They're strong, but I don't think they're oppressive. I know a lot of people think Pork is oppressive, but, Pork has weaknesses. All throughout April and this period of sort of stepping away from the keyboard, having a chance to introspect, I was worried about the role of parries. I really felt like parries were basically the same as armored attacks. You used them in the same scenarios, they got you out of the same situations, except for anti-air, I guess, but on the ground, they had all the same pros and cons. If you guessed right and did it versus an attack, they were so active, you just beat it. And if you were wrong, the opponent maybe got a punish. There's small gameplay differences, like the jumping and the fact that maybe Onion's parry was a little hard to punish on reaction, but it was You couldn't rapid them if you guessed wrong. They lost to the same things on the ground. They beat the same things on the ground. So we had 2 big patches, 48 and 50, to try and change beef and onions parry. They now are more of a niche sort of skill test move that still serves the important purpose of they're supposed to have a frame 1 invulnerable option on get up. I still want them to have that, but I want it to play a little differently in neutral or during pressure than just I'm committing to frenzy. Instead, it can be maybe I went for parry, and if my opponent wasn't on top of it, they can't punish, but also if they just staggered a little bit, they totally blow it up. In particular, I am very worried about whiff cancels. 1, I don't like the execution barrier on mobile. It depends on the whiff cancel, though. So, for example, Beef's lemon cancel is pretty late in the animation, so that's very doable on your phone to move your finger over. And it's a sort of niche advanced technique. You can do plenty fine with lemon at maybe beginner intermediate level and never use the empty cancel. Compare that to someone like Noodle's Fist, where you have to do it pretty quick, and it's necessary for certain combos. And if you drop it during that combo, you're just totally screwed. You did slap, you tried to rapid, tried to do close fist, and you whiffed. Now your fist is full screen, and they get a full punish. And yeah, Rice Swat is super fast, because you're trying to cancel this animation that goes quickly. The problem is that Rice only has their arm in the air for like 10 frames, so I had to put it really early. I think it's created a problem. I think Rice is balanced with the cancel, but it's not an execution barrier that I ever wanted this game to have. The parries, hopefully, are in a better place now. Whiff cancels, let's say they're on the chopping block. Let's get into the characters. I think Noodle has 2 problems. One is that they're a little strong. I think they're doing too much damage for their archetype right now. Yeah, all characters use all pronouns. That's correct, Kenny Gross. And 2, I appreciated this feedback. Something I tried to do for most of the characters is give them 2 viable buttons in neutral. If you're trying to jockey for space with Pork, do you go for the H, or do you maybe walk back just a hair and go for the chop? If you are playing as one of the spices, do you go for the less committal but much closer sweep, or the further range roundhouse, or one of their special movement mechanics, right? Noodle really just has whip. Fist is not a super exciting option, and at a certain range, you really only have whip. Whereas even Rice has swat down. Swat down has problems that we'll get to in a second, but Rice can maybe make the choice of like, do I just go for some chip because I know they're just trying to block and bulldog their way in, or do I go for a whip and try to hit confirm into something bigger? And Noodle is just whipping. So these are the 2 vectors which I'm planning to address Noodle soon. Rice is, in my opinion, the least elegantly designed character. A lot of the other characters have a very clear vision and are very simple to explain. Beef is this all-arounder who has good buttons, good damage, and some very powerful situational tools like Lemon and Parry. Pork is that, but more rushdown. Worse defense, but really strong mix-up. How do you explain SWAT? SWAT has been this leaky boat that started off as basically just way worse frenzy. For people who were here back in January, it just had the anti-air grab, and it didn't combo into anything. He had slightly more damage on his meterless B&B, and that was it. SWAT has been iterated on so many times now that kept getting it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more balanced, but now I think it's a mess. I think Teleport's good. I love Teleport, and I love that in Rice's kit, but I am not happy with the current version of SWAT, and SWAT cancel is part of it as well. So part of my current plan is, as I take damage away from Noodle, I'm planning to keep it in Rice. So Noodle can really embrace the sort of death by 1,000 paper cuts. I have the best options at range, and this really good get off me tool with Frenzy, and I will just whittle you down that way. Rice will have slightly less range. Their longest range move will be Whip, but they can turn their openings into more damage. They can't really force an engagement, but if you walk into a Whip, bam, you lose a lot of health. That's the state of Rice. I apologize for any Rice fans. I will try to keep the core of their character. I love the RC combo off of SWAT down, and I love the teleport. Those aren't going anywhere, but other things will probably change. Beef, in my opinion, as much as Rice is a mess, I think Beef needed the most help, because at least Rice did have a niche and did have certain unique strengths. But for the longest time, I think Beef was just a worse pork. It was really when I realized that like half the cast had a clean answer to Lemon, and that flex was so risky to do in neutral that, yeah, why are you playing this character? Why are you playing beef? Lemon is in this really interesting spot where I have to be really careful as a designer because I have two sort of equally high priorities. I want to have a really developed and interesting high-level metagame where all the characters are viable, but I also want to bounce to the very low player base, the very beginner casuals that this game is honestly mostly targeted at with its simplified inputs. And Lemon is this move, especially in a game without neutral jump. It's really hard to design a projectile that is viable at high-level play without being overpowered at low-level play. Cancel is my best attempt so far because it's essentially a technique that only high-level play unlocks, and you're not going to be able to really abuse to great effect against beginners. Beef has been fun to design and balance because to me there's someone that seems so straightforward on paper, but both of their tools are just like really precise and really finicky. I'm not sacrificing high-level balance for low-level balance, but it's really important to me to not have tools that just completely decimate low-level players. Like a lot of games will sometimes have the gimmick like unblockable. A gimmick unblockable that's like 2 seconds startup, reaches half screen, but it's unblockable. But no one does this in tournament because good players react and jump over and counter it every time. But if you put that in your game, beginner players won't know how to get around the unblockable, and it'll be me and my friends playing Street Fighter 4, and you just do focus attack over and over and over again and they can't escape. It doesn't like alienate a low-level player, an entry-level player, with one character being obviously terrible because all of their skills are locked behind this big skill barrier. I try to lay this out in the character select. I do believe for beginning players, the sort of learning curve goes left to right. The spices are designed to have the sort of lowest floor, but possibly highest ceiling, because they have the movement, but they also have this slightly higher for our game, relatively execution requirement. Pork, I love pork. As much as I hate pork, or I'll watch a tournament, or I'll play against Handsome Phil, and I'll be like, I hate pork. I really like where pork is in the game. I really like pork in this space of not a slouch in neutral, has the scary mix-up, and as a cost, is the only character that's just completely free to meaties. Everyone else has some option against meaty. Pork, it has to take it. And as long as the neutral doesn't get too strong for the meats in general, pork is in a good place. I have a plan to fix the meaty issue. People have talked about the fact that if you do a meaty caber toss, you really only have that 5-frame buffer window to escape by mashing out light or something. I have an experimental change, but I can't say it yet because it needs testing first. I want the meaty to be good. You still have to make the read, but I am looking into ways to mitigate that execution barrier without breaking other things. Onion. I remember January when everyone hated Onion, where Onion was just trashed here. Onion was unplayable. And it's true, Onion got buffed, but I think the players also got buffed. And this is the thing that I think it was actually a result of the hop kick change. Even though the hop kick change goes the same net distance, the fact that it travels the distance later and that changes how you push against your opponent's push box. Onion being able to combo, launch with roundhouse, walk up, sweep, hop kick, sweep, something else. That was not possible in January because the hop kick would push them the whole time. Whereas now, because it fades back and then pushes at the end, the distance between the characters isn't as far. My intent when designing the characters was that Onion would get more damage with meter and more damage in corner or relatively small, relatively specific circumstances. And the strength of Garlic, the sort of unique strength, is that Garlic could get good knockdown into Oki anywhere on screen because of Sneak. No matter how far away you hit that roundhouse, you can just sneak, immediately you're in them, and then you find some way to get the last 3 hits. I know that the training mode combo is not optimal. There's a better one I plan to put in later. But Onion shouldn't have that. I spent like an hour 2 weeks ago trying to see how to take this away from Onion, and it's surprisingly hard without hurting Garlic somehow. This, like the something else I just mentioned, like this, the caber toss thing, is in my mind a problem with the character and something I plan to fix. And I have a current good idea, but still might require more testing. Might not make it into the next balance patch. We'll see. And also, old Parry was nuts. It's funny, all the people who thought Parry was terrible for the first month, because Parry hasn't changed. If anything, it got maybe a little worse, a little better over time. But that combined with the juggle into hop kick, yeah, Onion was doing half health and getting basically full screen corner carry off of a guess. And so I've tried to diminish that with the new parry that launches up. Bam, already the combo is limited, and the launch angle is pretty steep, so they don't go that far horizontally. I want Onion to rule on the ground, and I want Onion to be this explosive damage character, but I don't want Onion to guess right and then win the round. And I don't want Onion to be rewarded with crazy damage in like every scenario. So these all sound like nerfs, but I still think Onion will be a strong character. I have every intention of Onion being a strong character, but I think they're doing the thing right now of sort of cannibalizing the other character in the same way that Noodle's high damage. I gave Noodle these buffs of like, oh, what if they could combo into Fist? Which was exciting as a Noodle player myself, because I play all the characters, but I think was bad for the game because it was eroding the strengths of someone else. Garlic is great. I love Garlic. I think Garlic's in a good place. I'm looking to maybe simplify some of their empty cancels, try to reevaluate which ones people basically don't use. I think Garlic's strong, but not oppressive. They're in a good place. So where does this leave us? I think the game has an okay balance right now from watching tournaments, from talking to top players, but I am really keenly aware of this issue of sort of variations overshadowing the other. So my current plan for doing this, the next iteration of Tough Love Arena, there might be many more, if you'll be patient for me, is the great depowering. I think in the excitement of adding new mechanics and adding all these patches in the last 2 months, I gave characters tools that they shouldn't have, or they had tools that they weren't meant to, and it was an oversight. Yeah, the nerfing. That's a great name for it. My goal is not to kill any characters here, but I currently have a draft list. I haven't implemented them yet, but I have a draft list of what the changelog would be like for the great depowering. It looks like this. In my version, there's something after all of those lines. There's colon and then description of changes. But I don't want to spoil anything because I plan to test all of this heavily and thoroughly, and if it seems like it totally tanks the character, I'm not going to release it. Don't want people to panic. But it's almost all nerfs, and some of the buffs are just sort of like mitigations on the nerfs. Let's talk about this. In my mind, the pros are we get a refresh for the game. Me and Amy have been talking about this recently, about what sort of keeps a community alive, and it's usually new content, right? The fandom dies if there's not new content, and we realized that I think part of what's allowed us to build this good community is the fact that we put out content in the form of streams, in the form of new character art, in the form of balance updates, and of course, new features. So every time we push a balance change, people return to the game. People want to check it out. Maybe it breathes a little bit more new life into it. I don't think this is a reason in and of itself to make balance changes, but I do think it's a pro, and it's worth acknowledging. So this isn't my motivation, but it's there, and I wanted to share that with you. More importantly, it's a chance to redefine some characters and fix a lot of the problems I talked to before about sort of what I'd call tool creep or complexity creep. Characters gaining options they probably never should have had, just coming through with a machete and cleanly resetting something. And yeah, the game has gotten a lot more complicated in the last 4 months. And some of it I think has been really fun and worth it. For example, I like most of the changes we made to SWAT. I like a lot of the new cancels that Garlic got. I like Fake Lemon. I love the multi-slap. I think people are a fan of that generally. But I've had time to introspect, and I think we went a little too far in a few places. Looking to do it all at once. No reason to do this piecemeal. I think it'll hurt less if we rip the Band-Aid off. Now, of course, cons. Nerfs feel bad. And less tools can feel like less options. I'll spoil this one. I am planning to, some way or another, I'm not going to reveal my method, but I'm planning to get rid of the fact that carbs could anti-air into Whip Loop. Whip Loop was cool. It's a really cool combo. It's a really cool thing to lab and to show off when you get an anti-air. But why do those characters have like a half health full corner carry combo? Why do they have that? You know why? It's because I didn't do good enough playtesting in the alpha, and it was there in January, and I took some of it away, but I was scared to take too much of it away. But it never should have been there. If you're a carb player, you're going to be like, what are you doing? That's my favorite thing to do. That's the hypest stuff. That said, I'm not just nerfing it because I think it's wrong for them to have too much damage. People have talked about, like, why would you do this as an anti-air? Why would you use SWAT as an anti-air? Why would you anti-air with Frenzy? You should always just do single slap into whip loops. My goal is to increase the number of viable options. In my opinion, it's a problem not just of maybe like whip being too strong, but SWAT also being too weak. And I want to bring them closer in overall strength, not utility. They should still feel different, but I want to remove this trend of singular moves just overshadowing other ones, because it doesn't matter if you have 100 moves but only one of them matters. So again, my goal is not to kill any character and not to kill their options, but to give you more interesting choices to make as a player. And to do that, I plan to buff some things but also bring a few things down. And the other mitigation in my mind is the worst kind of nerfs. No one cares about the character Gen in Street Fighter 4. No one cares about this weird stance old dude. And then Jian, tired of being vilified for playing Yun, who was OP at the time, decides, okay, everyone hates me because I play the villain character. I'm just going to play some, low-tier darling that no one cares about. I'm going to play Gen. And then he goes and he wins Evo. And what do? They nerf Gen. Gen was strong. Gen was underdeveloped and had high potential, but I don't think, Gen was top tier. I don't think Gen was the best character. And I think the worst kind of nerfs that a developer can do, which are very easy to do as a developer, and I've already done them many times already, is watching a tournament, seeing 5 Porks in the top 8, and then being like, time to nerf Pork. Because the players feel punished, right? The pro players feel like, that's what I get for putting all these hours in and getting good at Pork, and then, oh, the developer nerfed my character, so Pork is bad now. Pork doesn't exist. I'm really sensitive to putting that feeling in players' hearts. I really don't want to give people that feeling. It's a very powerful tool to have as a developer. You know something's going wrong. You want to nip the problem in the bud. I'm hoping that this great depowering, the great nerf ending, as someone said in chat, won't feel like that, because everyone's getting messed up. So it's not like you got singled out. It's just a slightly different game now. We're finally to the future. That was a long present. So the priorities for this month, sort of top to bottom, is polishing ranked and leaderboard, fixing the big glaring issues there, cleaning things up, monitoring the ranks, monitoring the usage, adding premium accounts, the great depowering, the aforementioned network tech debt. We got to rehost a lot of this stuff and move it around. The next big project, if I get to it this month, is I want to start working on desktop release. This will allow people to play offline, because right now, even if you have like the website cached or something, it still fetches all of the art when you load in a match. So if you ever want to run an offline event, if you want to play a tournament, which hopefully as people are getting vaccinated, this is looking better and better for the near future. It's really important to me to have a desktop app. Now, whether that's just an exe you download from the website or it's officially on Steam, I'm going to investigate all that. I can't make any promises right now, but there's going to be a desktop native version. And for a very similar reason, mobile versions. Fix some of the UI problems like scrolling and activating touch gestures on accident. It'll work offline in case you don't have data, or you're away from Wi-Fi, or you're on the train or something, or you're in a car and you don't want to sap all of your 4G downloading all the beef pics. I'm very excited for those, but they're pretty greenfield, and I'm basically starting at zero. So but they are my next big priority after the other things that I've already talked about in decent detail. On the Amy art front, Amy is continuing to work on the noodle cleanup. It's looking great so far. I really, really like it. It's more than halfway done at this point, I believe. And the other nice thing is, as soon as she finishes noodle, rice will already be... A lot of the noodle work that she's doing she'll be able to reuse for rice. So very excited for that stuff coming up soon. And also big props to Amy for the pepper arts. They're beautiful. There is a secret 5th pepper that you haven't seen yet that I will reveal probably after the rank reset. Very excited to show that off. It looks good. It looks good. Some spicy peppers. Lastly, the other thing that I want to start working on in some form is the mod workshop. I am so excited for this. I'm so excited for 2 reasons. One, I think it is invaluable for the long-term growth and longevity and health of our game to have this amazing avenue for community contribution and customization and expression. And 2, selfishly, as a developer, I think it's a really interesting problem to try and solve. A lot of the TLA work I'm doing now is just changing some numbers, a little bit more front-end, DevOps. The mod workshop is going to be complicated. So really my short-term goal is to do research, is to look at existing tools in other games, see how they do it, see what maybe sort of the expectations are as a potential modder, what you would expect to be able to do in the tool. I already have ideas on how you could quickly prototype locally and stuff. and it will require some rewriting of my engine to accept basically new characters. Some stuff is hard-coded at this point. I've been slowly moving away from it for the last couple months, ever since I've been keeping mods in mind, but there's more work to be done. Sometime this month, maybe a couple of days, if I feel like the premium counts are in a good place, maybe I just released them, I'll spend a day looking into mods, because I'm so excited for it. And then super far future. When does the beta end? The answer I always give is when phase 1 and 2 of our to-do list is done. And by that, I mean we have all of the core features you'd expect from a fighting game. I think the big ones still missing that I haven't explicitly promised I'm doing very soon are more single-player content, and there's still just like a million edges to polish. Like, Amy will finish the sprite art, we'll make a trailer and stuff. So the beta will end at some point, and I hope that the balance changes will slow down, by the time the beta ends. But there's still a lot of work to do, and that's part of why, I quit my job. I'm doing a lot more of TLA these days. I think as evidenced by my productivity in the last week or so. I'm having a great time doing it, and thank you all for playing the game. So we're going to keep working on that. So yes, my schedule is I am functionally full-time on TLA. I'm not going to strictly work 9 to 5 hours, because sometimes I want to work nights, sometimes I work on the weekends, but TLA is my baby, and when I'm not napping or playing other games, I'll be putting a lot of time into TLA. Amy has been able to get so much work done recently because she was sort of between contracts. I know she's planning to pick up more regular work soon, so the art will slow down just a little, but don't worry, Amy's not going anywhere. I'm very excited for her to get back to her studio work. She's been getting a lot of really good offers recently. I'm super, super happy for her. We built everything before January we built on top of our day job, so I'm not worried at all. And the long-term goals for TLA. I think this is something worth mentioning just every once in a while, because me and Amy have conversations about it behind closed doors, but I don't talk super publicly about it sometime. As it says on the FAQ, this is a passion project, this is a labor of love. We made this because we wanted to make a video game. And, not to be millionaires, obviously, not to make money. And everything we've done, I think we've been pretty obvious about it. Any money we have collected has been for the servers, has been reinvested in legal and commissioning music and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, maybe someday we'll get out of the negative money. We're still kind of in negative money in terms of the Tough Love Arena balance. My goal in the next 3 to 6 months is just to keep Tough Love Arena being stable. With the fact that, I quit my job, I've set aside a decent amount of money for myself so I can survive for a little while, but that's for me. And so my goal for Tough Love Arena, financially, whether through Patreon or Twitch subs at Twitch/MPaul Weeks, or Redbubble merch or Perryman counts, is to cover Tough Love Arena costs, make a nice buffer for Tough Love Arena costs, so that it can be very safely and well hosted for many years to come. I don't think there's anything else we're ready to talk about yet, but that's where we're at now. Just wanted to check in. And we made it to the Q&A. In summary, we've been doing lots of work. I think we're doing a good job. People have been playing the game. Thank you all so much for playing. Very, very happy with that. Very, very grateful. Still, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been really cool. This is basically a dream of mine, to make a fighting game and have people argue about the balance. That is the chef's kiss. I plan to make some pretty radical gameplay changes, but please know and have faith that I will keep an open mind and an open ear, and nothing is set in stone. We can always take things back. I want people to be more excited than scared about the great depowering. I'm optimistic about the direction of the game going forward, and we keep adding more features, so that's nice too. Why did you choose the character names and food-based theme? That's a very good question. The game originally only had 3 characters, no variations. Actually, Amy, you're in chat. Would you mind if I show... if it's in the design folder, would you mind if I showed them the very original sketch with the unused 3rd character? I was just like, I want to make a fighting game. Amy was just like, I want to animate a video game. So I came in with the very opinionated about the fighting stuff and all the mechanics, but then I was like, Amy, just give me whatever art style you want. What do you want to work on? And she came up with these, very simplified, flat, single color, expressionless characters. Oh, what is this? What is this? Oh, yeah! There we go. So this is the original design that Amy sent me. So I wanted to come up with just some code words for these while we worked on them. This was Arms. This was Beef, because they were beefier. Thick boy. And this one never made it to development. I was worried about the hurt box issues. And then eventually we added Garlic, and we called them Legs. So for the longest time, the game was just Arms, Legs, and Beef. You're right, we did keep the skates. I forgot the little alien man had skates. So we started off with Arms, Legs, and Beef. And then, we've been working on it for a year, and we're like, what should we name them? And we found that we really liked the name Beef. I think we originally called them Noodle, Beef, and Onion. Amy had always planned this like second palette. So we were just planning for that to be the second color. Pork was just the alternate color for beef, for the beef mirror match. But we didn't call them pork at the time. So it was beef and medium rare. And it was noodle and spicy noodle. And then it was onion and raw onion. And then when we decided, hey, what if we just made these into variations, reused these strong color choices you've already made? I am getting antsy. I have all these special moves I want to use that were on the cutting room floor. Let's make more characters. Then it didn't feel right to have one character named Noodle and the other character named Spicy Noodle. I wanted it to be super unambiguous when people were talking about the characters in a Discord or subreddit or whatever, to make it clear who they were talking about. So we added the restriction of the character to continue the sort of accidental theme. The characters had to be food named. They had to be a single word. Oh, the hats and the shoes! You're right! Beef would have a hat and otherwise be naked, and like medium rare would have shoes and otherwise be naked, or vice versa. Thank you, Wilton. Have you ever considered or planned a trailer for the game? Amy can answer this in chat if she wants, but I know she had plans to maybe animate a trailer / maybe like opening cinematic for the game, so that's definitely somewhere on the animation roadmap, but I'm not as keyed into that day to day. Do you think a beef, pork, rice, and noodle stew seasoned with garlic and onion would taste good? Yes. Yes, the answer to that is yes. Why is this game called Tough Love Arena? That's a very good question, Shy Ninja. We spent probably like a week or two thinking about the name, agonizing over the name. Well into development. We were just like, we have this game. It'd be nice if it was named. And we really liked the heart and spike ball icon / motif that you see in the logo. And you see the hearts and the inverted hearts on the characters, or you will in the finished animation. And it's a bright and colorful game, which is different from a lot of other fighting games, which tend to be a little bit more brutal, a little bit more violent. Even if they're bloodless like Street Fighter, they're pretty violent. They're cartoon violent. It looks like they got their neck snapped, sort of thing. You hear that really satisfying crunch with Cammy's throw in Street Fighter V. We wanted to lean into the fact that our game was, a little bit more pastel, a little more soft, a little goofier, a little kinder. And so we were keen on this sort of love idea, and we loved that sort of flavor. But it's still a fighting game. And there's some tough food in there. So I got really attached to just the phrase of tough love. It was just like, what's another word we can throw on there to make it obvious that it is a fighting game? You can go the approach of just naming your game Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. Okay, people get hurt in this game. Or you can call it just something totally original like Skullgirls or Under Night in Birth EX later. And then just hope people learn what your game is. So Tough Love Arena is our attempt to be maybe somewhere in between. The name maybe evokes combat. That's where we sort of wound up. Naming things is very hard though. I will say that. And it's not like a perfect thing that we immediately fell in love with, but I definitely, over time, grew to really like it. And I also think it has a relatively unique acronym. That's another thing. Like the character names, I was cognizant of like how are people going to talk about the game? Is it going to be easy for people to find each other if they like the game? And TLA is unique among fighting game names. Unfortunately, it overlaps with The Last Airbender. So, what fighting game have you spent the most time playing? Disregard what you like the most. What did you play the most? It's a very good question, Avic. It almost certainly has to be Street Fighter 4. I played that game a lot, starting in Super all the way through the end of Ultra. But other games in the top 5 in no particular order are Super Turbo, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Dragon Ball FighterZ, and Blaze Blue. Everyone always reacts to that first of like, oh yeah, Rapid, that's just a Roman cancel, right? Which is so funny to me because it's just the name of Roman cancels in Blaze Blue. They're just called Rapids, right? Blaze Blue was the first game I played with the Rapid mechanic, and I was like, man, that's really cool. Played a lot of Blaze Blue in college because, you play what your friend group plays. So, Give us a 30-second pitch for the Tough Love Arena TV show. There's lots of delicious foods, and they just keep beating each other up. Why won't they just get along? Why lemons? So the original idea, when the colors were just alternate colors, but like very drastic alternate colors with these different costumes, we were like, okay, beef has to throw a projectile that we want to be yellow to match beef. So what's yellow? And it was going to be actually a random selection of different yellow things. It was going to be like a lemon or a rubber ducky, and then the medium rare, the orange version with the cowboy hat or whatever, was going to throw an orange and other orange things. And then at some point, I think we forgot, and or we just enjoyed the lemon, or we recorded the audio and I really liked saying lemon, and so we just kept lemons. And besides, it's fun to, lemon is a nice little add-on to any of these foods, just like spritz a little lemon on there, get some flavor. Which characters do you think would be strongest without their special moves? I guess you could just say, like, look at the gameplay, who does their specials the least. The goal is that all the characters would essentially be viable with their core kit without their specials, and then the special is that extra add-on that differentiates the variations. So I would hope that I did my job and they're all viable without their specials, but I do believe that the spices are missed the most without their specials. Who did you main in SF4? Goken. Because when I first learned Super, I played against a bunch of Balrogs and Ryus doing Ultra every round, and I was like, that's a lot of damage, and you get this resource every round. I want to use that resource, but I can't do a double quarter circle forward without churning stick or buffering it behind something. So I picked Goken so I could back throw, churn butter for 2 seconds, and then mash out Ultra and get it. And I suffered with that old man all the way to Ultra. He was a very emotional character to play during that series because every patch he basically got like 2 steps forward but 1 step back. They'd like fix something really core and then take away something really cool. Like his ninja flip hit overhead in vanilla, that was so cool. But his Ultra version is still way better because they just like fixed things. Like his, EXDP actually hitting crouching opponents. It was an emotional experience playing that character, but I love Goken. I love him. He's my OG. Did some of these characters take inspiration from Street Fighter 4? Not explicitly, or I tried not to, but I'm sure some stuff might have leaked through. I do have ideas that I don't want to be too explicit about of, this move was obviously copied from this, but I don't think any of them actually came from Street Fighter 4. Which character was your favorite to voice? Probably Beef. I'm really scared about recording more lines because I think it's pretty easy for me to remember how to do Beef, but Onion and Noodle are kind of similar, or they're in similar registers, and I'm not a professional voice actor by any means, so they were all fun. I had fun with them all. I used to do a lot of barbershop singing, and I normally sing tenor, but I always kind of wanted to be a bass. I just don't quite have the low enough range for it. I'd love to be a bass. I can sing decent bass in like a fan quartet, but I can't hit those like low Bs or B flats that you need to sing like the real stuff. So it's always fun to do deep voices. I always like doing deep voices because I think my voice isn't naturally that deep. Are the voice clips ever going to get updated? We plan to keep them Paul noises, but we plan to add more. I have on the to-do, I think, the fact that we're missing noises for some of the stuff that was added kind of late, like rapids and bursts. And some characters have had new moves or moves added on, or have had to reuse too many noises. I got some interesting feedback way back in January about people who were more who were sight impaired, and how if the noises could be more consistent, that would help the game to be playable off audio cues. Right now, the game, like a couple of moves have dedicated clips, but then otherwise each character has like 6 random grunts that play at random. I still like that feel, so maybe it'll be like a toggle for vision impaired people, but that's a consideration. It'd be nice to have a sound for each move, potentially. Spice is still the best because walk speed is king in 2D fighters, baby! Yeah, until you get cornered, and you have little T-Rex arms. Can you do the lemon sound right now? Lemon. My voice is a little hoarse, but lemon, lemon, lemon. Something like that. So you've done Frenzy and Chop on stream. When are we going to see Paul dab or hop kick? Well, I don't think I can physically hop kick, but I can... are any new stages planned? Me and Amy talked about this a while ago about potentially doing maybe like variations on stages. Nighttime version of the grocery store or something. Not planned, but we've discussed it. For me, it would really be an excuse to just get more music. I would love to commission more music from Josie and M. They're wonderful. But where would we put it? So Amy's pretty focused on Noodle right now, and I think that's the correct call. What happens when there are 2 hurt boxes in the air and meats do spike? Which hurt box will hit first? The first one that jumps. Let's find out. Walk them up. Freeze time. Start that one, and then start that one. Let's see what happens. They go up. The later one armors through the first one's attack. And then the first one also armors through the other one's attack. And so they miss each other's knees. But it looks like now the first one will probably hit first with the hitbox. First one wins. If they're that close. Obviously, if they're done at a much different time, like, say, the first one goes way earlier and then the second one goes, right, then the second one's just going to be clean. Is Onion's Rapid Cancel a JoJo reference? Nani? I do all my development on Mac. Right now I do all my Tough Love Arena work on a MacBook Pro that I have over here, and then I have my external monitor here, and then all this routes through a capture card into a little Windows pre-built now that's in my closet, and that does the streaming. Mac is great for doing terminal-based Unix work. Big fan. It's a shame about the price and everything else, but yeah. Is there a character that is considered to be the protagonist or main characters? Beef is very intentionally chosen to be the middle of the character select and to be the character for the basic tutorials, because I think they're the nice all-arounder, especially Beef, who has a fireball. They're definitely the closest to like a Ryu parallel in that sense. But from a normal standpoint, they're in the middle. You know, Heavy Punch is a good move. Cover Space is fast. It's kind of hard to whiff punish. They're not as polarized as the other two characters. So Beef is a very loose protagonist in that sense as far as like a default character, but I am not seeking to make any character super specialized. None of the 6 characters are like the antagonist. They're essentially all equal protagonists. Let me put it that way. Oh, Amy contradicted me. Amy says that Noodle is the protagonist because they're first. I gotta go with Amy on that one. Will there be more character skins? Yes, I'm planning on going back up to 6. I'm not sure if that extra last color will be maybe locked behind like achievement or something. Not money, but just like an in-game Chivo system. I don't know. Also, the skins are going to inevitably be massively reworked when the higher res art comes out, because the methods I was using to generate the alternate skins is not going to work. So things will change, and hopefully, you know, for the better. So look forward to that. Kiltakir announcer voice. All out battle at the Chuck E. Cheese's. Bare your soul to the mouse. That's great. Can you add a pressure counter? Counter that adds up during block string. That's interesting. Fast, John. I don't want to get into an argument with you. I guess in my mind, pressure is often something that's not explicitly block string. Because if it's a true block string, there's no decision to be made on the defender's part, right? They're just, if you do sweep roundhouse, they're just blocking it. They can't do anything about it. Pressure would be more of like how many times did you get them to block before they tried to counterattack or something. And I guess the guard break was something sort of like that. The guard break mechanic definitely taught me it's kind of hard to measure. Turtling, there's ways you can do it, but it has gaps, or it can create sort of false positives. Like there's the turtling of I blocked 4 jabs in the corner because they keep waking up jab and I'm just not pressing anything, versus the like I'm trying to approach and I bulldogged 4 whips. Those should not be the same scenario, but it was hard for the game to disambiguate them, or at least my original implementation. So that could be a cool thing, but I don't see a huge value add, I guess is my point. But it's an interesting idea. That reminds me. I did have some crazy ideas for how to signal counter hit, which is something I do plan to add to the game as like a damage bonus. So that reminds me. Thank you, Fast John. Do you think explaining Wake Up Jab in the tutorial would help new players? I'm planning to completely redo the tutorials, both from an infrastructure standpoint and revisiting all of the talking points, re-editing places where I got too jargony, places that could use more building out. I have great ambitions for the tutorials, but it's taken a backseat to some of the more multiplayer features. To put it this way, we have a lot of features left, and I have decided to prioritize the features for the enfranchised core audience to do the best to sort of retain them, but I will be definitely not neglecting the single-player features before we say come out of beta. So, when is the next Q&A? I'm always available during the development streams, and I'm pretty available on the Discord, so definitely you can catch me there. I'm happy to answer one-offs, but this has been super valuable for me. I've had a lot of fun. I plan to do this type of thing the first Monday of every month. I had a wonderful time putting together the slideshow. I was a little nervous, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah, we'll do this again in a month, and we'll see how premium accounts are going. We'll see how ranked is going, and hopefully the great depowering will have happened by then, and we'll see how people feel about it. So, last question. Who do you think is the strongest right now? You. On that note, this has been a wonderful stream. Thank you all for coming by. We have normal development stream at the new normal time tomorrow, every Tuesday and Thursday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. EST. We'll be working on some infrastructure stuff, probably. Maybe I'll do some depowering stuff on stream if people get me riled up. Thanks as always. Me and Amy are very, very grateful. Okay, bye.